Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're jumping into a really critical topic around the biggest players in AI. It's this idea that we might be building a single, centralized digital worldview. Our source for this is an analysis by Johan Steyn, and he calls it a monoculture of meaning.
Right.
So what does that actually mean? Well, it suggests the world might start operating under this one very narrow definition of what's true, what's important, what's valuable.
hmm
And to really get at the heart of this, our mission today is to unpack it using a very old and powerful metaphor, the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is the paradox here. I mean, the original Tower of Babel story, it's all about language becoming fragmented.
Right.
And that led to confusion.
Right. Everyone's suddenly speaking different languages.
Right? Everyone's suddenly speaking different languages.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we're doing the opposite. We're centralizing all this global knowledge into just a few unified AI systems. We're building a digital version of that tower. So we're creating this single shared language of meaning, but, and this is the key, it's one that's so narrow and so biased that it could, eventually lead to its own kind of confusion by fragmenting our actual diverse human understanding.
Okay, so let's get into how this digital tower is actually being built.
Yeah.
The development of these powerful LLMs, it's overwhelmingly concentrated in just a handful of major tech corporations.
And they're almost all based in Western countries.
Right.
And that concentration, it's not just a problem for the market. It's an epistemological one. It's about knowledge itself. When you have that much power in so few hands, you get extreme opacity. I mean, we just don't know how they're deciding what gets filtered or what gets amplified.
It means accountability is almost impossible.
Almost impossible. And it really stifles true innovation because everyone ends up following the same sort of design philosophy.
So that structural concentration, that's what leads directly to the core problem here, which is cultural bias.
Precisely. The training data itself is the engine for this monoculture. It's pulling mostly from Western languages, from Western academic institutions, digital culture.
What gets left out?
A lot. I mean, if you think about what's being systematically overlooked, it's massive. We're talking about entire non-Western knowledge systems, oral histories, indigenous ways of knowing, or African epistemologies.
And when you say epistemologies, you just mean different frameworks for understanding reality, ones that aren't the standard Western scientific model.
Exactly. These aren't just, side stories. They are crucial parts of our shared human heritage. The real risk here is that the narrow scope of the dominant AI becomes the only source of what's seen as legitimate knowledge around the world.
So this all has some huge implications. The source argues this creates a kind of technological hegemony. It even uses the term digital colonialism.
It's a very powerful term, yeah. But it gets at this idea that human agency is sort of being subordinated to corporate algorithmic goals.
So digital colonialism is basically when a country's or even an individual's digital life depends entirely on infrastructures and values that are external to them.
Yes, and that completely undermines national digital sovereignty. It forces this dependence on foreign tech and foreign standards.
And it's not just about nations. The risk extends to the next generation, doesn't it? The analysis talks about something called cognitive atrophy.
That's maybe the part that's most concerning. Cognitive atrophy, in this context, it just means a reduction in our independent critical thinking skills.
It's like a muscle that isn't used.
That's a perfect way to put it. If kids grow up with this one homogeneous worldview being fed to them by an algorithm, well, they can become disconnected from their own diverse cultural heritage. They lose the practice of reasoning for themselves because the single tower already has all the answers.
So the solution isn't to just tear down the tower and stop AI. It's more about championing a pluralistic ecosystem.
Right, resisting the single tower.
And instead, promoting many different models, different data sets, and different value systems. The source mentions things like regionally governed or even Afrocentric AI initiatives.
Which brings us back to that central paradox. The original Tower of Babel created confusion because language was fragmented. Today's centralized AI, it risks a similar confusion, but it does it by homogenizing meaning, by reducing all the vibrant diversity of human thought into one single biased stream.
So that leaves us with a pretty big question. If only a privileged few are safeguarding the digital scaffolding of our meaning, what diverse knowledge will be lost for generations to come? And what's our responsibility right now to make sure the AI ecosystem actually reflects all of humanity? Something for you to mull over this week. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.